January of 2018 that I realized that, there's a small part of me that was like, let's work on this. And so I remember I was journaling a lot of the time because I was just trying to like put everything into place to make myself function and at a normal pace without acknowledging the fact that, I was trans. It works out well. It doesn't work out well. Don't do it. You can't ignore it. You really can't. It just catches up with you. It really does. So I started writing and I was like, maybe this is it. I had actually written down some names at that time. And I kind of just threw it away. I was like, no, not dealing with this, not happening. And then a little bit later, still not feeling the greatest, but doing better, honestly. It was helping. What I was, doing, the therapy was helping, things like that. And I was approaching one of my busiest years of school. Very hectic, busy, probably designed that way so that I didn't have to think about my life. And I got some news that was kind of earth-shattering, honestly. It just flipped the way that I perceive the world, which I can't really talk about, but it was one of those, like, I looked at myself in a completely new light that I had never done before, that I could, it was like, oh, this is my body, this is who I am, and this vessel, and what I used to think it was, it no longer is, and that's interesting. That's okay. So that kind of just shook things up for a little bit. And then another major thing happened where I worked, through with my therapist and figured out another pretty big part of my upbringing, not related to myself. And I was like, okay, so basically it just gave me freedom to have like a label for things and to know that I wasn't alone, but to know that it was, I can still create who I am and who I want to be. And I'm not tied in to what I always thought I was and what I had to be. And it was kind of at that same point that it was like, I'm trans. Or could be, or I'm non-binary, I'm something, I'm not female. And so like after a couple of months, I had written about it and I was coming to terms with it. And I was like, I was watching a shit ton of YouTube videos and I was like, this isn't normal, like clearly like I need to just do something about it. And so I went to a support group for specifically trans men. That was either non-binary, gender non-conforming, trans men questioning type thing. And the meeting, I actually don't remember much about the meeting. It was adequate. But what I remember most was, one, seeing other trans guys and being like, oh, this is my first time meeting a trans guy. Weird. I would have never said that they were trans, which I had this preconceived notion that you could always tell. And two, they're not freaks, which I thought, I'm a freak, so these people must be freaks. And then it was a small admittance to myself that I could do this and I fit in. And so I went, and then summer or winter holidays happened, so I didn't go again for like a couple of months, like 2 months. And I came back. That was a long break because it was like, I just want to figure this out, but then I'm at home in this very conservative environment, and so it's hard to think when you're in that environment. And so I just kind of pushed it down and didn't acknowledge it. And I came back and it was just kind of like it needed to be done. And so I started I was looking for it and I went to those groups. And I kept on hinting at it with my therapist, but I just couldn't say the words. I just couldn't. I was like, it just feels like I'm so close and like there's just something off and I just want this to work and all this stuff. And I was so freaking close. And then he said it. And it was like, thank you for saying that. I wish you would have said that 6 months ago when I brought up all of these feelings, essentially. He's like, you don't have to be the token trans guy, you know? And I was like, oh, you caught on. Okay, that word's okay. Let's, you know, I don't want to talk about this anymore. And then it was like next time, like, oh, I really want to talk about this. How do I bring it up again? And then gradually now more and more of my sessions are revolving around that. I guess long story short on that, that was kind of how I came to being okay with it a little bit. But in the past month, what I've really been doing is I have been talking to my friends and being vulnerable. And I am terrible at being vulnerable. I think most people are. But me especially so, just because of certain things in childhood, I just don't open up, especially emotionally. And I have some really awesome friends. And I have gotten to talk to them and gotten to hear their side of things and been open with them about my struggle with gender and how I didn't realize that gender was different than sexuality. And I guess we should back that up. That was about 10 months ago that I kind of had that realization, because I was at a church function that was talking about LGBTQ stuff, and they were going through the trans umbrella because people had questions about like basically what that is. And gender nonconforming got brought up and pretty much described me to a T. Granted, it was very awkward because I was in a room of people who were absolutely nothing like me. I, was the token queer, basically. And I was like, wait, hold up. You're telling me that I am trans because I'm like gender nonconforming. Wait, what? But it gave me permission. It gave me permission to think about it at the time. And I guess that's actually what led to a lot of YouTube searches and just being okay with it. Anyway, I've been having these talks with friends and just being really open and vulnerable, and they've reacted tremendously well. And to the point, where I talk to them and I'm like, hey, this is what I've been thinking. Like, I want to hear your side of it because I want to hear what you think of femininity or masculinity, and why are you female and why are you male? And coming to that conclusion, that, hey, I guess I do identify as masculine and as male. And to the point where I talk to them and then they're like, okay, well, we got to come up with a name for you. And so they've just been super accepting. But I also have to say, it is so hard to start that conversation. And I have some friends that I know are super close and that would be okay with it. I think they would be okay with it. But I don't know how to bring it up. And that's hard. That's bothering me. Like, I want to talk about it. I want to tell more people. I want to figure this out. And I don't know how. I need to buck up the courage and start talking to more people. But I also need to tell my family. And I don't think they're going to handle it well. I really don't. My father's older. He's almost 80. My mother is older as well. And they're both very much in the Trump camp. So that's the level of that. Great. And I have a twin sister, and she's also very much in the Trump camp, and we look nothing alike. And so I don't know how they would respond. I don't have much family outside of that, and it's scary, especially when you're still in school. You feel very vulnerable from financial constraints. You feel very vulnerable because you don't really have a career yet. And then you have this other added dimension of, well, I'm trans and I'd really like to start medically transitioning. And I don't need your approval, but I want you to know. That's a conversation that's not going to be fun. But I guess I started this conversation just kind of talking about how the days are better. For sure, they're so much better right now. I'm hopeful it's not temporary. But it very well could be. There could be darker days ahead. There always are. That's what makes the good days worth it, right? But there are doubts and everything. There's always doubts. And I guess that's just a little bit of how I've gotten here, how I've kind of understood and didn't realize that I had dysphoria, but that I actually did, and that's actually what was causing me some pretty severe depression. And those things are still there, but I've given myself permission essentially to realize that it is what it is. It is dysphoria, and that that's made it better for now. And we're working on it, and so progress is progress. I don't feel trapped, and so that depression has kind of lifted. And I have some awesome friends who are being very supportive and who are helping me along in this process, and I look forward to going further and further in this process. So I've rambled enough. I hope you all have a great day, and thanks for watching. If you want, subscribe below. I don't have any subscribers right now, so you should be the first. Okay, cool. Bye.